Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up today, why I'm not going to make fun of Bob Ferguson and actually thank him. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
I know all anybody can talk about in the D.C. Beltway right now is the crossed signal chat that happened with the Trump administration. But for me, and I'll give you the spin you need to argue with your Democrat friends, I'll give you all that. But for me, there's so much here that isn't being talked about. And let me start with this. Aren't you glad to know that these are the same people in private that they are in public? Before we do anything else, we could have looked at that chat and be like, oh, he called Trump a so-and-so. Oh, he's really a you-know-what. They are the exact same patriots in private that they are in public. They thought it was a private chat, and yeah, we got the Houthis. Yeah, we're going to take them down. Yeah, we did it. Woo, America. Even with the emojis, with the American flag and the explosions and the fists and all that. That actually gives me a lot of confidence. How many times is it that we meet politicians or we talk to politicians or we hear about it or we see some document and we go, oh, God, that's what they're like behind the scenes, and it happens on the regular, as Mike would say. It was actually really nice and really refreshing today to see that these people who Donald Trump has picked for his cabinet are the exact same people they are in private as they are in public, as they are when they think nobody's watching them, as they are when they know the eyes of the world are on them. I don't want that point to get lost. Now on to the spin for you before we even get into what happened. You want to refute any of this with Democrats freaking out that a reporter was added to a Signal chat? Okay, number one, any of you ever used Signal before? I use it. I use Signal for people who want to share stories with me, who don't want them to become public, want to protect their identity. I don't use it a lot, so I'm not as proficient with it. But Signal, number one, by the Biden administration, was adopted as something you could use to communicate this way. This was the Biden administration. Here's Senator Tom Cotton telling us how the Biden administration made it an okay app to use. Not like they're doing this on WhatsApp, which is easily hackable.
Many people in the intelligence community use Signal. They have communication all the time. Is that not correct?
Lawrence, that is correct. In fact, I bet a bunch of those senators that you see at the hearing today are using Signal as well to speak to each other or to speak to their aides. And it is my understanding that the Biden administration authorized Signal as a means of communication that was consistent with presidential record-keeping requirements for its administration, and that continued into the Trump administration. It's simply another messaging app like the iMessage app on your iPhone or email servers that every administration has set up, in which senior administration officials can communicate with each other.
So that's number one. It's okay to use the app. Let's get rid of that little checkbox right there. Yes, you can use the app. Yes, everybody does it. Here's something else that's preloaded on their devices. They get government devices. This is preloaded on the devices because it's been approved for use. Number two, Democrats all of a sudden are worried about national security. I didn't hear them worried about national security when somebody in the Biden administration leaked Israel's attack plans to Iran. Leaked the plans to attack Iran to Iran. I didn't hear them freaking out about that one. Here's something else. If we're talking about leaks, hey, has anybody found that person who leaked the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision? I know it's not national security, but did we forget about that? Somebody leaked that to the media. Here's something else. Because I use Signal, it's a real pain in the butt to add people to a chat. Do you know why? Not everybody goes by their name. Some people go by their initials, and it's really not that user-friendly, in my opinion. It's one of the harder apps, which is why I don't use it unless I absolutely have to. And what apparently happened here was an aide of National Security Advisor Mike Waltz accidentally added somebody, a reporter, Jeffrey Greenberg from The Atlantic, who had the same exact initials as somebody else who was supposed to be added to this chat. There's that. Number 3, The Atlantic itself. The Atlantic is a garbage paper that writes garbage articles that has been sued a bunch of times. They've also been wrong a bunch of times. For example, the people who are at Normandy with Donald Trump, all the generals, have denied the story that he called everybody who died there suckers and losers. They're the ones who wrote that. They're the ones who are all about Russian collusion. And, by the way, it was Jeffrey Greenberg who wrote both of those. Now, a broken clock is right twice a day, and it looks like he was right with this one. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff here that's being ignored by the lamestream media because they're so eager to be national security, national security, national security. You guys didn't care about the Houthi rebels, and neither did Joe Biden. So spare me about, he could have compromised American lives. It could have compromised. Please. You guys didn't care when October 7th happened. You guys didn't care when Russia invaded Ukraine, except to say, we got to support Ukraine, Russia bad. We don't care what the game plan is. You guys haven't cared about so many different types of domestic terrorism. You guys are encouraging domestic terrorism right now against Tesla. So spare me your crocodile tears about national security. If you cared about national security, you would have cared about Hillary Clinton's emails. What actually happened according to the article? So Jeffrey Greenberg writes in The Atlantic, the world found out shortly before 2 p.m. Eastern Time on March 15th that the United States was bombing Houthi targets across Yemen. I, however, knew 2 hours before the first bombs exploded that the attack might be coming. Wait. Hang on a second. I thought you said they sent you war plans. If they sent you war plans, wouldn't you know exactly what time they were coming? Now, he says he didn't want to reveal them in the article because of national security, or is it Jeffrey Greenberg how you have to take everything with a mountain of salt? I don't know. That's what he wrote. I'm just using his words. The reason I knew this is that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, had texted me the war plan at 11:44 a.m. The plan included precise information about weapons packages, targets, and timing. So why is it a might? If you got all that, you knew exactly when it was coming. This is going to require some explaining, he says. The story technically begins shortly after the Hamas invasion of southern Israel in October of 2023. The Houthis, an Iranian-backed terrorist organization whose motto is God is great, death to America, death to Israel, curse on the Jews, victory to Islam, soon launched attacks on Israel and the international shipping, creating havoc for global trade. So here's your first question if you want to refute this to your Democrat friends who are going to bring it up at cocktail parties this weekend. You know what it is? How come Biden never did anything to seriously go against the Houthis? Nothing. Nothing at all. He barely did anything. And now Donald Trump has to come in and clean up another mess. Throughout 2024, the Biden administration was ineffective at countering these Houthi attacks. The incoming Trump administration promised a tougher response. This is where Pete Hegseth and I come in, writes Jeffrey Greenberg. On Tuesday, March 11th, I received a connection request on Signal from a user identified as Michael Waltz. Signal is an open-source encrypted messaging service. Popular journalists and others who seek more privacy than other text messaging services are capable of delivering. I assume that Michael Waltz in question was President Donald Trump's national security advisor. I did not assume, however, that the request was from the actual Michael Waltz. I've met him in the past. And though I didn't find it particularly strange that he might be reaching out to me, I did think it's somewhat unusual given the Trump administration's contentious relationship with journalists. You mean with you. And Trump's periodic fixation on me specifically. Well, you write BS articles, but okay. It immediately crossed my mind that someone could be masquerading as Waltz in order to somehow entrap me. It's not all that uncommon these days for nefarious actors to try to induce journalists to share information that could be used against them. I accepted the connection request, hoping that this was the actual national security advisor and that he wanted to chat about Ukraine or Iran or some other important matter. 2 days later, Thursday at 4:28 p.m., I received a notice that I was included in a Signal chat group that was called the Houthi PC Small Group. A message to the group from Mike Waltz read as follows: Team, establishing principles, group for coordination on Houthis, particularly over the next 72 hours. My deputy, Alex Wong, is putting together a Tiger team at deputies agencies chief of staff level, following up from a meeting in the Situation Room this morning for action items, and we'll be sending that out later this evening. The message continued, please provide the best staff point of contact from your team for us to coordinate with over the next couple of days and the weekend. Thanks. The term Principals Committee generally refers to a group of senior-most national security officials, including the Secretaries of Defense, State, and the Treasury, as well as the Director of the CIA. It should go without saying, but I'll say it anyway, that I have never been invited to a White House Principals Committee meeting, and that in my many years of reporting on national security matters, I had never heard of one being convened over a commercial messaging app. That's him injecting himself a little bit more into the article than he needed to. 1 minute later, a person identified as MAR, which is likely Secretary of State Marco Anthony Rubio, wrote, Mike Needham for State, apparently designating the current counselor for the State Department as his representative. At that same moment, a Signal user identified as J.D. Vance wrote Andy Baker for VP. A minute after that, TG, likely Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, or someone masquerading as her, he writes, wrote Joe Kent for DNI. Hey, that's our man, Joe Kent, right there. 9 minutes later, Scott B., apparently Treasury Secretary Scott Bassett, or someone spoofing his identity, wrote Dan Katz for Treasury. At 4:53, Pete Hegseth wrote Dan Caldwell for DOD, and at 6:34, Brian wrote Brian McCormick for NSC. One more person responded. John Ratcliffe wrote at 5:24 p.m. with the name of a CIA official to be included in the group. I am not publishing that name because that person is an active intelligence officer. In all, 18 individuals were listed as members of this group, including various National Security Council officials. Steve Witkoff, President Trump's Middle East and Ukraine negotiator, Susie Wiles, the White House Chief of Staff, and somebody identified only as SM, which I took to stand for Stephen Miller. He appeared on the screen as JG. Now, there is somebody whose initials are JG who is likely supposed to be included in this chat, and that's probably how this happened. After receiving the Waltz text related to the Houthi PC small group, I consulted a number of colleagues. We discussed the possibility that these texts were part of a disinformation campaign inherited by either a foreign intelligence service or more likely a media gadfly organization, that some of the group's attempts to place journalists in embarrassing positions and sometimes succeeds. I had very strong doubts that this group text was real because I could not believe the national security leadership of the United States would communicate on Signal about imminent war plans. I also could not believe the national security advisor to the president would be so reckless to include the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic in such discussions with senior U.S. officials, up to and including vice president. Now, here he had a choice. You can do things for a story, but if you had serious concerns, you know what you could have done? Reached out and said something. Hey, guys, now I know you're a journalist and you're after a story, but if you have such huge national security concerns, don't you say, hey, I shouldn't be here? Look, a few months back, I got added to a WhatsApp group because everybody thought I was my wife. And when they started asking me to cook things for Sabbath, I'm like, you got the wrong guy here. This is not for me. I am in the wrong chat. Sure, it was funny up until then, but I backed out and gave him my wife's phone number. He had a choice at that point. He chose not to take it. Okay, he's a journalist on a story. But if you were so concerned that it was phishing or that it was people impersonating them, why didn't you leave the group? That's my question right there. Okay. The next day, things got even stranger. On 8:05 a.m., Friday, March 14th, Mike Waltz texted the group, team, you should have a statement of conclusion of taskings per the president's guidance in the morning with your high side inboxes. Okay, here's where we need to stop. For everybody saying classified data over Signal, classified data, a high side inbox is where you send classified data. So he sent them a note saying you have classified data in your inbox. That does not show a breach of protocol. Should a reporter have been in there? Of course not, but they're following protocol. State and DOD would develop suggested notification list for regional allies and partners. Joint staff is sending them a more specific sequence of events in the coming days and will work with DOD to ensure COS, OVP, and POTUS are briefed. At this point, a policy discussion commenced. The account labeled J.D. Vance responded at 8:16, team, I'm out for the day doing an economic event in Michigan, but I think we are making a mistake. The Vance account goes on to state 3% of U.S. trade runs through Suez. 40% of European trade does. There is a real risk that the public doesn't understand this or why it's necessary. The strongest reason to do this, as POTUS said, is to send a message. The Vance account then goes on to make noteworthy statement, considering that the vice president has not deviated publicly from Trump's position on virtually any issue. I am not sure the president is aware how inconsistent this is with the message on Europe right now. There's further risk that we see a moderate to severe spike in oil prices. I'm willing to support the consensus of the team and keep these concerns to myself, but there is a strong argument for delaying this a month, doing the messaging work, why this matters, seeing where the economy is, etc. Let me stop right there. This is an amazing moment. One, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump did not agree on everything before he was vice president. And in fact, this is a point he has made in the past. He is more of an isolationist type, I will say. I don't want to call him an isolationist, but I'd say he goes more in that direction that people a little bit more to the right of me take from time to time. But what is he doing? He's not expressing his discontent in public. He's having a talk with the inner circle and saying, hey, guys, maybe we should consider this, maybe we should consider that, as the naysayer. They're not in an echo chamber. They talk out the issues. And J.D. Vance is who he is. And he says, I have disagreements with the president, but we handle them behind closed doors. A person identified in Signal as Joe Kent. That's our friend, Joe Kent, who's been the nominee to run the National Counterterrorism Center. Wrote at 8:22, there is nothing time-sensitive driving the timeline. We'll have the exact same options in a month. Then at 8:26 a.m., a message landed in the Signal app from a user, John Ratcliffe. The message contained information that might be interpreted as related to actual or current intelligence operations. Now, at 8:27, a message arrived from Pete Hegseth. VP, I understand your concerns, fully support you raising with POTUS. Wait, that's something else. Not don't take them up with POTUS. Not, hey, shut up you, or anything like that. It's, of course, go talk to him. That's how we work around here. Important considerations, most of which are tough, to know how they play out. Economy, Ukraine, peace, Gaza, etc. I think messaging is going to be tough no matter what. Nobody knows who the Houthis are, which is why we would need to stay focused on Biden failed, Iran funded. He's 100% right. How many of you knew what the Houthis were before the story? How many of you knew who the Houthis were before you started listening to my show? How many of you knew who the Houthis were before October 7th? And let me ask you a question right now, and you can answer this honestly. If I gave you a map right now and said, where are the Houthis located? Which country would you put them in? Which country is Houthi? Oh, wait a minute. They're not in a country. They're a terrorist organization in Yemen. All right, where's Yemen? Now, a bunch of you are going to say to me, Ari, I know where Yemen is. I saw that Friends episode where Chandler's trying to get away from Janice, and he moves to Yemen so that he doesn't have to actually deal with breaking up with Janice. He could just say, I'm going to Yemen, right? How many people know where Yemen actually is? Do you need a map? Oh, Mike, scan the mic.
Well, see, I was going to say I wouldn't be able to point at any of those places on the map, but I would be able to point to the Red Sea.
Exactly.
I'd be like, there.
Or here's this. Anybody go to Sunday school? Right? That's that line from Indiana Jones, The Raiders of the Lost Ark. Well, you guys never went to Sunday school? So what happens? Where is the Red Sea? Well, the Jews went through it on their way out of Egypt. Egypt! Where's Egypt? Okay, I can find the Red Sea. Where's Israel? Wait, this math doesn't make it. Why would you go up to go sideways? This makes no sense on a map. Who wrote this book? Was it Pangea back then? I don't understand. This is confusing.
We go cross the land bridge? What are we doing?
Exactly. So, Hegseth was talking about all this, and then after that he says, I welcome other thoughts. How many other times would it be like, shut the blank up, you don't know what you're talking about? No, these people are who they are, which is great. Oh, and by the way, before you guys go, he was addressing the vice president. Does it say, hey, Veep? Does it say any of that? No, they're talking like buddies. They're talking like friends. They're talking like we do in a chat. J.D. Vance said, if you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again. He's not wrong, by the way. There's an argument to be made. It's a wrong argument, but there is an argument to be made. The user identified as Hegseth responded 3 minutes later. VP, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic, but Mike is correct. We're not the only ones on the planet on our side of the ledger who can do. We are the only ones on the planet on our side of the ledger who can do this. Nobody even close. Question is timing. I feel like now is as good time as any, given POTUS directive to reopen shipping lanes. I think we should go, but POTUS still retains 24 hours of decision space. Now, after the actual discussion here, and then when the operation goes through, it's a lot of yes, go America, emojis, and all that. So I come back to this at the end. These people are who they are in private, that they are in public. They are patriots serving our country. Should a journalist have ever been added to the chat? No. But I'm going to give some PR messaging to the Trump administration, which is what they're doing already. It seemed like they didn't really know how to respond at the beginning. Here's how you do it. At the beginning, it was they were attacking the Atlantic. The way you got to go with this is instead, yeah, it shouldn't have happened. And we learned from it, and we're making mistakes. But you know what? We learned how to never let it happen again. And We had a successful operation to take out the Houthis, something the Biden administration never did, and let them become a threat to international shipping. And because they became a threat to international shipping, your grocery prices went up. Your goods went up. Things got more expensive. We're bringing down inflation. Boom, pivot. Right there. That's what the messaging should be. You want to get bogged down in all the nitty-gritty of Hillary's emails or leaking plans of Israel's attack on Iran or any of that, you can do that. But instead it should be, yeah, we messed up. We made a mistake. We will make mistakes. We're human. But look what we did. We took out the Houthis. We made your groceries cheaper. We are protecting American interests overseas. You're welcome. Biden never did it. Biden sucks. Trump great. That's your messaging. That's how easy it is. People are calling this a scandal. They're calling it Signalgate. It's not a scandal. It would be a scandal if behind the scenes we found out that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump hated each other. It would be a scandal if behind the scenes we found out that there was friction between Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth. It would be a scandal if somehow these plans got out into the open where they were releasing these tactical plans. It's not a scandal. For me, it actually gives me, yes, people make mistakes. Yes, aid makes mistakes. But you know what? It gives me more confidence in this administration than I had before. Not to say I didn't have any before, but this is actually building up my confidence. Every day, I thank God that President Trump got elected. And today was an easy day to run and hide. Not today, my friends. Not today. When we come back, I would love your thoughts on Signalgate, as they're calling it, 206-421-5757. But also, Dow Constantine has been appointed the head of Sound Transit almost. We'll give you the crazy details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Yesterday, our friend Transit Joe called us in the middle of the show to give us some breaking news that the new CEO for Sound Transit has been appointed as Dow Constantine, nominated. So what that means is the board's going to vote on him likely on Thursday, and then we'll know whether or not he's the actual nominee. Now, what I'm disappointed about, Mike, there is a certain politician who has a relationship with this show that comes on the show annually to discuss something that I've reached out to their office, and they have dodged me on this issue. And I don't like that very much. Now, you want to say during the process you don't want to talk about it? Process is over. We got the vote coming up. If this person still won't come on the show after this, I'm really beyond upset about that. Because it's a fair question to go, you were appointed by this person appointed you to this board, and now you're voting to give them a $675,000 salary per year. This was a closed-door process, and it was not transparent at all. And when I reached out to Sound Transit saying this was a closed-door process, they said, well, we had a lot of community stakeholders. I'm like, but you didn't have the community. Who was representing me? And then they cut off communication. This is crony capitalism at its absolute worst. Oh, I put you on this board, and now you're going to give me this job because Constantine's 63 years old, and he doesn't want to run for King County Executive again or a higher office because Bob Ferguson got in the way. So now what happens? He says, oh, you know what? I just want this nice retirement package of $675,000 a year for the rest of my life. Constantine has previously served multiple times as the board chair for Sound Transit, an organization plagued with massive cost overruns and crime. Construction of new lines is considerably behind schedule, and now we're finding out they've spent $3 billion on the West Seattle link, and they haven't even put a single stake in the ground. Nothing. Nada. Zip. By the way, last night I got a little bored. Grok is great for collating data. Grok was excellent at this. This was very, very helpful. For those of you who don't know, Grok is the AI over on X. So I asked it to start comparing salaries for me. And what did I find out? Here we go. So the Sound Transit one is around $675,000 a year. The guy who runs transit in New York City, infinitely bigger than our system, infinitely bigger, makes $365,000 a year. That's half. That's less than half of what this salary is. Also, the New York City MTA, the Metropolitan Transit Authority, has 1.9 billion riders annually. Daily, they have 6 million. Chicago, 309.2 million annually. Daily, it's about 962,000. Their CEO's salary, $391,000, so higher than New York's. The DC Metro Service, 283.1 million people annually. Daily, it's about 913,000. Their CEO, $485,000. So you're telling me that Seattle Sound Transit, with its paltry 4.26 million riders per year, and it's daily 130,000, that guy needs the highest salary out of any transportation authority in the entire country? Here in Seattle? By the way, you want to know how bad this is? I did a little tallying of what state officials get paid. Some of the highest paid state officials. Excluding the football coaches from the colleges, excluding the college staff. I had to take that out because those numbers are outrageous, by the way. Completely outrageous. So, Mayor of Seattle, $210,000. Governor of Washington, $218,000. Pierce County Transit CEO gets more than the governor of Washington at $245,000. King County Metro Transit, $280,000. City administrator of Vancouver, Washington gets paid more than the governor of Washington, $291,000. Washington County administrator gets around the same. Richland School District superintendent, $300,000. Secretary of the Department of Health, $314,000. So your own secretary gets paid more than you. Seattle City Light CEO, $315,000. Vancouver Public School Superintendent, $363,000. Seattle Public School Superintendent, $390,000. Do you know the only thing that beats all these guys? CEO of Sound Transit at $675,000. And we know that Dow Constantine is terrible at this. He's getting ripped by the right and the left. You've got King County Council members Gurmay Zahili, Claudia Balducci are running to succeed him. Both are board members who were appointed by him. Do you see the political back-scratching that's going on? The left-leaning transit riders union who, believe you me, we do not get along at all. They wrote, "We believe better candidates from outside of Sound Transit and Puget Sound exist, and that the process for his consideration and possible hiring would be insurmountably tainted." Exactly. Dow comes with a very large conflict of interest. As King County executive, he was directly or indirectly responsible for appointing 10 of the 18 people who will conduct the hiring process. While we expect and believe that people can act impartially, humans are subject to all forms of influence, intended or not. The public would likely feel the same way. Exactly. They also slammed them for no public feedback. The group also called out Constantine's lack of experience, noting that the CEO of Sound Transit is an administrative leadership position akin to general manager of Metro, not a political one. This does not align with positions to which he has been elected and held. David Scott, spokesman for the leftist advocacy group Seattle Subway, said, "Selecting any current board member as CEO would be a massive breach of ethical standards. The CEO will have to exercise great fortitude in standing up to this board to ensure the user experience is not sacrificed for the sake of powerful interest." Exactly. Republicans have slammed Constantine. We have, for soft on crime policies, failure to address the homeless and drug crisis during his tenure as King County executive. Problems have become so widespread that a recent study revealed that on buses and trains, meth was found in 100% of air samples analyzed and 98% of surface samples. Fentanyl was found in a quarter of the air samples and almost half of the surface samples. Let's not forget that assaults on passengers and people who ride transit have spiked 53% and 80% respectively. This is the guy you want to put in charge, or the guy who bought a hotel for the homeless that was abandoned for years because they had to do meth remediation, and it's also in the path of the light rail. It's going to have to be torn down, so he spent your tax money on it. You want to spend your money on this guy? Sound Transit made a huge, huge error. If you agree with me or disagree with me, give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, did COVID relief money go to grade schoolers? Who is actually cashing those checks? Doge has some crazy new information out when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. We are living in the golden age of America, my friends, and a reminder that your chance to win some money to be part of that golden age comes up at 4 o'clock today. Make sure you are listening at 4 o'clock for our keyword and your chance to win over $2,000 in cash and a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Well,
this will be America's new golden age.
Exactly. That guy. You'd be part of the golden age of America. Well, it looks like some people were living in their own golden age of America. The Small Business Administration apparently gave out $330 million in loans to children under the age of 11. Tell me how that happened. Now, by the way, I assume this happened one of two ways. Way number one, somebody stole their Social Security numbers or whatever it is, stole their information. Way number two, their parents stole their information. That's how I believe this happened, which is really, really messed up. $330 million to children under 11. Do a lot of 11-year-olds have bank accounts? How old was I when I got my first bank account? I mean, I know it was in middle school, but what is 11? 11's 5th, 6th grade, right? Yeah, 6th grade's bat mitzvah. 6th, 7th grade's bat mitzvah. Yeah, that's 12. Okay. So, yeah, you're talking about 5th grade. I think I got my first bank account around, 7th, 8th grade. But at the same time, my parents were still co-signers on it and everything. During a cabinet meeting on Monday, Elon Musk revealed exactly what they found. This is what the Doge team revealed.
Well, a clear case of fraud was with the Small Business Administration, where they were handing out loans, $330 million worth of loans to people under the age of 11. I think the youngest, Kelly, was a 9-month-old who got a $100,000 loan. That's a very precocious baby we're talking about here.
Well, we're tackling the fraud, waste, and abuse in the agency. We've seen, hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud go unprosecuted, so we're taking that on. We have a zero-tolerance policy for fraud, and we continue to crack down on it and make sure people are held accountable.
It's amazing. And you have a lot of that. We found far too much of it. It's a pure fraud. We like to use the words waste and abuse because they sort of sound good, but many of these things are pure fraud. Now, there was a contract that you've heard about where Stacey Abrams got $2 billion just before we took over.
Oh, yeah. She wasn't the only one, by the way. You want to know who else was getting a ton of money? So, the husband of former Congresswoman Cori Bush is facing federal charges for allegedly defrauding the government through fraudulent loan applications. Federal prosecutors have charged Courtney Merritt's, 46, of St. Louis, Missouri, with 2 counts of wire fraud. According to the United States Attorney Edward Martin Jr., Merritt's fraudulently obtained over $20,000 in forgiven loans through the Paycheck Protection Program and other Small Business Administration loan programs in 2020 and 2021. Per release from the DOJ. Department of Justice states that in 2020, Merritt's received an $8,500 COVID-19 economic injury disaster loan from the SBA for his business, Vetted Couriers, a moving company. On his loan application, he claimed the company had 6 employees, reported $32,000 in gross revenue between January 30th, 2019 and January 30th, 2020. The release from the DOJ reads, Courtney Merritt's, 46, of St. Louis, Missouri, was charged today by a federal indictment with 2 counts of wire fraud for allegedly filing fraudulent application with the Small Business Administration in 2020 and 2021 that allowed him to collect more than $20,000 in government funds under the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program and Paycheck Protection Program. You know what upsets me more about all this? I owned several small businesses, and I barely got anything from this administration. I mean, I was honest. I was upfront about all my financials. I think for my company that was doing $500,000 in business, I think I got $5,000. I think that's all I got from these loans. Yeah, try keeping your employees in business when the government says, we're closing down your company. Here's $5,000. We kept operating. Just to keep my guys employed. The amount of people that reported my little bounce house company, yeah, most of those people probably didn't know was subject to public disclosure requests, so I know who every single one of them was. By the way, would you like to know what the Secretary of Agriculture found? Give a listen.
Let me just add to that, and thank you. We just had a wonderful cabinet meeting, all aligned on certainly the effort to realign the government. But even at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, we've canceled $300,000 contract educating on food justice for queer and transgender farmers in San Francisco. A similar contract we canceled in New York, again, educating transgender and queer farmers on food justice and food equality. I'm not even sure what that means, but apparently the last administration wanted to put our taxpayer dollars towards that. We canceled a $600,000 contract out of Louisiana that was studying the menstrual cycles of transgender men, a $600,000 contract. We canceled another contract out of a university in the middle of the country that focused on getting more diversity, equity, and inclusion into our pest management industry. Again, these are nonsensical. It makes zero sense to use taxpayer dollars to fund these. I know these are just a few examples of the hundreds and hundreds that we have found.
So, while you were having trouble paying your bills, while you weren't allowed to work, that's what the Biden administration was funneling money towards. While your groceries are going up because of inflation, that's what they were spending money on. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's going on?
Hey, nothing much. First of all, I wanted to find out from you if you got my email from you about Timothy Polley.
Oh, don't ruin the surprise. We're talking about that at 4 o'clock today.
Okay. And secondly, I wanted to let you know what you just mentioned about somebody's 11-year-old old and under not getting their money from Social Security. That is because the reason for that is somebody's been stealing their Social Security numbers and claiming the money to themselves.
That's why well, Leonard, that's why when they say waste, fraud, and abuse, that's exactly what they're talking out about. And meanwhile, the Democrats are saying, oh, they're going to take away your Social Security. No, people who are 300 years old or whatever the age is that they've been finding at the Social Security Administration should not be getting Social Security checks. And also, I remember when Social Security numbers first came out, I wasn't alive, but this is why I read in the history books, they weren't supposed to be a form of ID. Now they're used as a form of ID all the time. Leonard, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett takes a cheap shot at Governor Greg Abbott and gets absolutely destroyed by everybody. We'll give you the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Jasmine Crockett is trying to take AOC's place. AOC is trying to become the next Kamala Harris. Everybody's trying to move up the ladder. So Jasmine Crockett is trying to be the new fresh thing by saying outrageous stuff and hoping people react. Imagine if a Republican said what she's about to say. Imagine if a Republican said this, how quickly Democrats would call for their resignation. Give a listen.
Because we in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess, honey. So yes.
Are you talking about Governor Greg Abbott, who was paralyzed in a car accident at 26 and yet has still managed to dedicate his entire life to serving his state, his city, his county, his country? Is that what you're doing? Can you imagine if somebody on the right made fun of somebody on the left with a disability? Oh, wait. They used to say, oh, Joe Biden's got a speech impediment and these Republicans are mocking him all the time. Called for everybody to be canceled. Anytime there's something where they can say, you didn't know that person? All right, how about this? What's her face? Will Smith's wife. What's her face? With alopecia. Jada Pinkett Smith, right? Oh, you're offending her because she's got alopecia, which she doesn't really have, and her hair's falling out. How dare you make those comments about her? Can you imagine if somebody on the right made any of these comments, what would happen? By the way, I couldn't help but notice that Jasmine Crockett's voice has changed a little bit. Here's what she used to sound like.
Absolutely. First of all, it's good to see you in the new year. You know, no one could have told me that when I went down to Austin, now looks like a little bit over a year ago, that I would be running for Congress. It's just not what my plan was.
So she sounds a lot different in that clip, doesn't she? So she's putting on that accent. By the way, you know where she gave those comments? At an equality lecture. She's at an equality conference bashing somebody who's paralyzed. The hell is wrong with you? Imagine if any Republican did that, how severe the backlash would be. But I guess if you're woke, then you get a free pass on all this. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Scott in Issaquah. Scott, what's up, man?
Hey, well, I want to say something I haven't heard for a long time. People used to complain that you shouldn't have to pay in Social Security should be an optional thing. I don't hear the Democrats ever, basically Trump, all they do is say Trump's going to take away Social Security, which is not true. He's not going to. But at least, maybe Trump should make the argument that if you don't want to pay it, you shouldn't have to. I've paid a ton into it, and I don't think I'll ever get it. It's all been stolen by a bunch of thugs like Dow Constantine who think that they deserve $600,000 paychecks by a judge. Is that what I'm getting? A judge that appointed him?
No. Hang on. Let's backtrack a few things, okay? So Dow Constantine steals a lot of things. You can't blame him for Social Security. Let's not forget that George W. Bush wanted to give a plan which you could partially privatize your Social Security, and the left went bonkers crazy, absolutely crazy. They call Social Security the third rail of politics, and I say that's because that's where all the power is. Because if you could actually solve it, everybody's going to have to give a little. Everybody's going to have to get a little. Dow Constantine's not being appointed by a judge. He's being appointed by the Sound Transit Board that he elected and he put them in place, that he's selected.
Gotcha. I gotcha. Well, no, so I'm just saying they hate Russia. What was Russia? Russia was the United Socialist, that's what they did. It fails. These people, they hate everything they say. They're just a whole bunch of hypocrites. I can't understand any of their politics. It's lies. It's just stuff. It's like, it's just totally ridiculous.
You want a perfect example? Here's a perfect example for you. You're going to love this one, Scott, okay? When the New York Times is talking about abortion, it calls the unborn baby a fetus. Recently, when they were talking about promoting illegal immigrants, they say illegal immigrants and their unborn child. Wait a second. It's an unborn child when it comes to illegal immigrants who want to have a child born in this country, but it's only a fetus when you talk about abortions. You want to explain that one? That's hypocritical, don't you think?
That's pretty self-explainable if you have a brain. But I know most Democrats don't have a brain. So.
Oh, be nice. We have plenty of Democrat friends who listen to the show, and a lot of them voted for Trump. Scott, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. So I got this text from John in Lakewood. He says, Ari, about so-called Signalgate. I heard Trump. He could have done a better job, but he did okay. Democrats are responding like fools. I predict this will be the proverbial nothing burger in a day or two. Yeah, I completely agree with you, John. Would you like to know why? Because at the end of the day, was anything compromised? No. Are we beating the Houthis? Yes. Donald Trump's approval ratings are going up. The Democrats are going to cling to this for dear life, like Joe Biden held onto the railing of the White House and didn't want to leave that place, like he holds on to his wife's arm when getting off Air Force One, like he holds on to that railing when climbing up the stairs to Air Force One, or he might fall down. Why are they going to cling to this? They got nothing else. What policy do they have? Egg prices are coming down. Gas prices are coming down everywhere except for here and a couple of other blue states. Inflation is cooling off. The tariffs are actually working. Oh, they don't want to admit that? You mean all these companies that have been announcing they're coming back? There's a reason they've been announcing they're coming back.
Tariffs work, and President Trump is proving that every single day when new companies from around the world are pledging to invest billions of dollars in the United States of America and our workforce. Today, we had Hyundai announcing $20 billion in American investment, $5 billion in the great state of Louisiana to build a steel plant. Why? Because President Trump has implemented a 25% tariff on steel.
So what companies are doing is they are moving their resources back here, their production lines back here, so that way they won't get tariffed. It is working. The question is, what's going to happen on April 2nd? Are they going to be more targeted? Because then Wall Street will be okay with it. If they are very, very broad, Wall Street won't, and a lot of people are going to have issues with their 401k. But he's done over $3 trillion worth of money coming back to invest in the United States in just the last, 75 days? Yeah, that's what I call winning. Your chance to win is coming up next during our Golden Age of America giveaway. Your chance to win $2,000. Plus, I have some praise for Governor Bob Ferguson, and I promise not to say anything bad about him all day. I'll tell you why when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, I'm going to say something nice about Bob Ferguson and thank him for something. But before we do that, it is time for you to be part of the golden age of America.
The golden age of America, I call it. It's begun. So it's the golden age of America, and that's what it's going to be.
Exactly
This will
right.
be America's new golden age.
Yes, it will be. The golden age of America. So,
But we're going to usher in a new golden age of American success.
Yes, we are. So, here's all you have to do. I'm going to give you a keyword. You text the keyword to our phone number. You do not text any other word. You do not text your phone number. You do not text your address. You do not say, "Hi, Ari, here's the keyword." If you do anything other than the keyword, you will invalidate your entry. So all you have to do is text the keyword HAIL, H-A-I-L, as in all hail Ari Hoffman. Hail! Hail! H-A-I-L. Text that to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. If you call in, you do not get to enter the contest. Just text in the word to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. If you text in multiple times, it does not improve your odds. Just the one time. It will actually disqualify your entry if you do it more than once. You have until 5 o'clock to enter. Remember to enter the word HAIL at 206-421-5757. So that way you can be entered in our Golden Age of America contest. Your next chance at winning comes tomorrow at 8 a.m. during the commute with Carlson. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout delivery order, and more.
I can proudly proclaim that the golden age of America is upon us.
Yes, it is, my friends. Yes, it is. And with that, we have some good news today. This broke just a couple of hours ago. Washington Governor Bob Ferguson issued an order today canceling the planned release of convicted mass murderer Timothy Pauly. Now, I know a lot of you have helped with this. I know a lot of you have helped over the years with this story. This has been going on since 1980 when Timothy Pauly and an accomplice went into a bar, a tavern in SeaTac, killed 3 people, thought they killed 4, but they killed 3 people. And he's been trying to get out of jail ever since, even though they told the family these guys are never seeing the light of day. So what happened? The Sentencing Review Board here in Washington said, we want to release these guys because we don't want jails. We want to release anybody. So we want to release this mass murderer. What happened? We went through this whole rigmarole a couple of years ago. It was one of my first years on air, I think. It may have been my second year on air, where what happened was the family contacted us. They said, KVI has always helped us out in the past. Can you help us out again? I didn't know anything about this story. Of course we did. And we pressured Governor Jay Inslee to stop the order, to stop this guy from being released. And he did. And then, like the coward that he is, Governor Jay Inslee, former Governor Jay Inslee, his last day in office, signed an order rescinding his previous order, allowing a mass murderer to be released, not just released, but released to the same neighborhood where his victims' families lived. And nobody told the family. They found out by fluke coincidence, and they got a hold of me. And as soon as we found this out, we blasted it out to everybody we knew. We called our friend Brandy and Nicole because they used to work with Brandy and Nicole used to work with Dory, and Dory used to cover the story all the time. We told everybody we possibly could. We told every news outlet we possibly called. I contacted Como. I sent them the story to make sure everybody would know to put the pressure on Bob Ferguson. To his credit, he met with the families of the victims on Monday. And apparently, following that meeting with the family of the victims, reviewed the case. That's what he is supposed to do. He is supposed to, by law, he is supposed to review the case, and that's exactly what he did. And then he rescinded Jay Inslee's order, which would have released Timothy Pauly. Now, for today, I will not speculate on Bob Ferguson's rationale behind this, whether it was political, whether it wasn't political. I'm just going to tell you this. He did the right thing. And we had you guys bombard his office. We had you guys call them. We had you guys text them. We had you guys email them, telling them to please make sure that they didn't release this guy. Well, after you ask somebody for something and they give it to you, you should always call to say thank you. I sent an email today to Bob Ferguson's office, to the governor's office, and I sent it to the person who never gets back to me on any request for comment ever. Doesn't matter. I'm going to send a thank you. And what I wrote was, Brianna, that's his person, please convey my thanks to the governor for keeping Timothy Pauly in prison. I appreciate that he took the time to meet with the victims' families and that he did his due diligence on the case. Have a wonderful day, Ari Hoffman, host of the Ari Hoffman Show. I'll tell you guys, you can do the exact same thing. When somebody does something like that, reach out and say thank you. So you reach out and say thank you when they do something like that, okay? It's an important thing to do, to not just get bogged down in the we hate this person. For one day, you can say thank you. And for one day, I'll be nice to Bob Ferguson, because you know what? He did the right thing. And it also means Jay Inslee's taking L's everywhere, because I love this. So Jay Inslee's order gets reversed. So after he's out of office, he's losing his own legacy of releasing mass murderers. Here's another one for you. Another convicted felon and career criminal who had his sentence commuted by former Governor Jay Inslee is back behind bars in Seattle. According to Fox 13, 69-year-old Eugene Smith was released from prison in 2021 after Inslee commuted his sentence for robbery and assault with a deadly weapon enhancement. He had been in prison since 1995. After he was released from prison, he was on the Department of Corrections supervision until that ended in March of 2024. He has been in and out of prison since 1976, escaped work release on 2 different occasions. The Snohomish Regional Drug Task Force arrested Smith on Friday. He is facing 3 drug charges, and his bail has been set at $100,000. Why would you pardon a career criminal? For me, if I was the governor, if I was the president, you look at the cases where you go, okay, this person's really not likely to reoffend again, meaning the sentencing was out of whack. It just seemed like Jay Inslee wanted to release everybody. Don't forget, Jay Inslee's the one who almost released Gary Ridgway. He wanted to release the Green River Killer during COVID. He wanted to use COVID as an excuse to release as many criminals as possible. Now, this is the exact same task force that a week before arrested one of the leaders of Black Lives Matter Seattle-King County on almost a dozen drug charges and weapons charges after being granted clemency by Inslee in 2019. After a warrant was served on Percy Levy's home, officers found 2,818 grams of powder cocaine, 14.7 grams of rock cocaine, and 556 grams of fentanyl. Oh, it sounds like a pretty good time, except it could kill a third of the people in Snohomish County. Yeah, this guy was the person they used as the poster child for reform here in Washington. Oh, you want to be mad about something, by the way? Here we go. How about this? Percy Levy, you know who was arrested that we just talked about? He is free on a $1.5 million bond. Now, is that paid by one of the activist groups around here? One of the agencies he reps for, or is he a drug dealer and has a lot of, alleged drug dealer and has enough money to spend on bail money? But yeah, that guy's now out. Is he going to testify for the Democrats in the legislature this week? Because I would laugh if he actually did that. Oh, it looks like we have a special guest joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law studio line. And we go to Carlene Johnson from the Center Square. Carlene, what's going on?
Hey, Ari, you guys have been all over this thing with Tim Pauly, and I have to tell you, I was in the office of State Representative Jenny Graham. You were just talking about the Green River Killer. Of course, Jenny Graham's sister, Debbie, was killed by Gary Ridgway, and that's what inspired her into politics. But I was interviewing her about this case. She had met with the family last week, and I have met with the family on a couple of occasions, and we were kind of updating, what's Ferguson going to do, whatever. And then word came down that he had reversed Inslee's decision. So, I mean, there's audible applause, I can tell you, in the hallways of several Republican lawmakers in the John O'Brien building today when the word started trickling out. And I know your listeners and John Carlson's listeners have been flooding the offices of Governor Ferguson since you guys started covering this most recently. And so that stuff does make a difference. Social media, of course, makes a big difference. But ultimately, this guy that was going to get out tomorrow, and what that would have done to these families, and not just Kelly Tarp and her sister Angie, but the other victims' families. I can't even put words to what it would have, done to them. But this is a day to celebrate, and you're right. Bob Ferguson did the right thing today. Public pressure helps. So we never get to find out how many of our listeners for sure called, but I know you and John have a lot of sway with your listeners, Ari, and whatever public pressure was applied, I'm certain weighed into his decision to do the right thing today.
I appreciate that. And I'll tell you something else is that I am actually lighthearted to hear that people are really excited in the legislature. And it's actually a good bridge building opportunity because even people who are the biggest Bob Ferguson haters, he has shown that he wants to be bipartisan. Now, we can question the motivations behind that. But this is a great opportunity for people to actually go meet with the governor and say, Governor, thank you. Or just drop him an email or whatever the case may be. And I know a lot of the legislatures listen to the show. And you say, hey, just thank you so much. Thank yous are free is what I always say. You always disagree with people on a lot of stuff. Here's something else. I'll tell you a little tradition we have. So we just had Jewish Halloween, otherwise known as Purim. And in Purim, we don't go around asking for treats from people. We go around giving treats to people. And there's actually a custom where when you're in a fight with somebody or you're mad with somebody, you go give them the treats anyway because they may go, oh, they still like me. And then you can build bridges that way. Imagine what a thank you letter does from somebody who hates his guts, who says, hey, that was really nice of you, Governor. Maybe there's something we can work on. Imagine what that could do, Carlene, right?
Oh, that's huge. No. It's very Christian of you, right? I see some biblical principles there, my friend. Yeah. No, 100%. And it does make a difference. And I will tell you, someone just needs to sit down with, Kelly Tarp or other members of the family. She and her sister Angie, of course, have been so outspoken, and listen to their tears and the horror that they went through. As you well know, their mom passed away. They were burying her on the day that they found out that Inslee had approved this clemency, thanks to the Indeterminate Sentencing Review Board, which is another whole joke. But at any rate, they told me since 1980 these crimes were committed up until now, not once did former Governor Jay Inslee ever sit down with them and give them the courtesy of an ear. And they sat for nearly 1 hour yesterday in the office of newly sworn-in Governor Bob Ferguson, and he listened to their tears and he heard their story. And I was sitting outside the governor's office yesterday when they walked out, and they were so grateful. And I said, what do you think he's going to do? And they said, we really don't know, but you know what? He listened. He let us cry. He heard our stories. They brought pictures of their family members, and they felt heard. And they said, this is the first time since this horror done to our family in 1980 that we felt heard. And that made all the difference. So you're right. Governor Ferguson is, for whatever his motivations are, at this point it doesn't matter because right was done. Today.
Exactly.
Right was done.
Exactly. And whether it was political or whether it was anything else, the right thing was done. And that's important to remember. Carlene Johnson, what stories are you working on today so people can go check them out in the Center Square?
Goodness. Well, I had 5,700 other stories to work on today, and then this thing with Polly broke, and I got redirected to that. But, I am working on another budget-related story. Sat with Democrats in the media avail this morning, asked some questions about the budget, and got confirmation from Senate Majority Leader Jamie Peterson that there would be a line-by-line public hearing of every tax proposal that they've put up. Now, I don't know how much time they've got for public hearings. A session is scheduled to end on April 27th, but he basically said that any suggestion that they wouldn't have individual public hearings comes from people that don't know what they're talking about and how the legislature works.
Well, you get to quote him on that if he goes back on his word. Do you think they're going to do a line by line of everything they're spending the money on? Because we found some fun stuff in there.
Well, isn't it? There's all kinds of fun things in there, and yet we want to, kill all the puppy dogs, and just don't even.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
That's one of the things I'm working on for tomorrow. And one other one I know your listeners have been paying a lot of attention to. I think HB 1531, the communicable diseases one, basically the working towards forced vaccines because we didn't learn anything from COVID, right?
Yeah.
That bill was exec out of Senate hearing today on a mostly party line vote. Senator Paul Harris, Republican, he voted in support of this thing. Reached out to his legislative aide to say, what the heck is going on and why would you support this? So that'll be a story for tomorrow as well.
Crazy stuff, but thank you, Carlene, for covering it. Do appreciate it. Make sure to check out Carlene's work in the Center Square. Thank you so much for being with us today and for all the updates and the firsthand knowledge of what happened. Thank you so much, Carlene.
Thanks, Ari.
Yep, always a pleasure. Switching gears for a minute, my friends, in the last few minutes we have left in this segment, I saw a story in the Seattle Times, and I just started laughing. When I was running for office for Seattle City Council, a question kept getting asked, and I had to study up on what they meant by this. They gave out a term I had never heard before, food deserts. What's a food desert? I'm like, we don't live in Arizona. What are we talking about? What they mean is a place where there's no grocery stores. So it's harder for people to get groceries if they don't have a car, if they can only take mass transit. Now, that was kind of made obsolete by the fact that now you have Uber Eats and you have other deliveries and you have Fresh Direct and you have all the different companies that can Amazon Fresh, anything that can deliver to your house. It's kind of irrelevant now where the grocery store actually is. In fact, I try to avoid my local Safeway as much as possible these days because I'm worried about dying, God forbid, because it's gotten so dangerous over there. In fact, both the Safeways near my house. In fact, all three the Safeways near my house, none of them are safe. They are all very unsafe. We're calling them unsafe ways from now on because it's that bad. Seattle Times had this story here. As drugstores close, older people are left in pharmacy deserts. Well, yeah, but here's the thing, my friends. They grabbed this from the New York Times. You guys all supported BLM, right? You guys all supported that? So you supported criminals being released from jail. You guys supported the burning down of all these stores. How many of those stores didn't reopen? On top of that, you supported all the rioters. You know, they used to target CVS and Rite Aid and all these stores all the time. On top of that, you guys supported the soft on crime policies that would allow prolific offenders, especially shoplifters, to get released and released and released and released and released. Why do you think so many of these grocery stores closed? Yes, I know that certain stores were bought out in a merger and they got too big for their britches and then they went out of business. That happens. But how many of these stores didn't have to close except for the amount of theft they dealt with? You know what they used to say when our parents were kids in the 1950s? Oh, we're going to have moon bases and we're going to go to Mars and the world's going to be amazing. You know what they used to say in the 1960s? Well, now that we have men on the moon, we can build moon bases. And then we never went back. What are we doing right now? Instead of building moon bases, instead of sending men to Mars, what are we doing? We're putting plexiglass in front of deodorant in your local pharmacy because they're stealing anything that's not nailed down to the floor, and sometimes they're stealing that too with a truck that they stole that they backed up, wrapped a chain around it, and then dragged it through, destroying the whole front of the store. Pharmacy deserts, grocery store deserts. Do you think maybe this is all because of your bad policies that embolden criminals, that enable shoplifters, that make these things so bad? This is 100% on you guys. I don't want to hear you going, oh, pharmacy deserts, oh, the old people. You guys supported BLM. You guys supported Antifa. You guys supported the riots. You guys supported releasing the prolific offenders. And Democrats like Jay Inslee released as many as they possibly could. One last thank you to Bob Ferguson today for doing the right thing and keeping mass murderer Timothy Pauly behind bars where he belongs. You want to weigh in on the subject? You give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, did the Hamasniks at University of Washington, Columbia, and other schools know about October 7th before it happened? A new lawsuit claims they did. We'll give you the details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. So Nick Brown is now joining the lawsuit on behalf of Washington to go head-to-head with the Trump administration about shutting down the Department of Education. Tell me, Nick, which part of the Department of Education would you like to save? Is it to help out your union buddies getting money from the Department of Education? Because the money's coming back to the state, in theory. What exactly do you object to? If anybody in your office actually got back to us, we might have an answer to that question. Unfortunately, we don't have one right now. Meanwhile, other miseducation nonsense. So in Columbia, they had their first day back on campus for the semester yesterday. And remember that Columbia said, okay, we're going to do whatever the Trump administration wants. We're going to crack down on those protesters, and they can't wear their keffiyehs wrapped around their faces to hide their identity anymore, and we're not going to let them target Jews. All that happened on day one. All that happened on day one. Everything they said they were going to stop, they didn't stop. Every single thing happened instead. So now I got a problem because now you're not getting back your $430 million. $430 million. Let me say that again. $430 million. You think they would be smarter about this. But apparently, the principal, it's a college, right? The president, whatever. She's like a grade school principal at this point, privately told faculty there was no mask ban, even though they agreed to it. Katrina Armstrong, the interim head of the embattled university, according to the New York Post, downplayed a slew of Trump-ordered policy changes during a tense meeting with faculty over the weekend. So the faculty was mad that she gave in to the Trump administration and by that protected Jewish students. Let me say that again. The faculty is mad that the school president was going to protect the Jewish students and shut down the Hamasniks. So the faculty wanted to keep going after the Jewish students and wanted to keep the Hamasniks on campus. Columbia University cannot be saved. It cannot be saved. I think we should just go through with defunding the entire thing and let the chips fall where they go. Take away all their federal funding and watch what happens. And I think they should add a new condition, by the way. Fire any faculty member who supported this nonsense. Anyone. Yeah, that's it. Despite telling Trump officials that wearing masks during future campus protests would be curtailed, Armstrong assured staffers that there was no ban in place, according to a transcript of the meeting obtained by the outlet. The revelation comes after dozens of mass protesters flooded the Morningside Heights campus on Monday in defiance of the school's newly announced restrictions on face coverings. Now, it's not really the face coverings I'm so much worried about. I'm worried about if we call them Hamasniks. What if they're actually Hamas? There's a new lawsuit that has been filed, and we actually know the attorneys behind the lawsuit. They're the same ones going after the Palestine Chronicle here in Washington, the group whose journalist, and I'm using the air quotes, if you're watching us over on Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, and X, that their journalist was the one holding hostages in Gaza. You remember that whole story? Same law team going after these guys. So, according to the lawsuit, the families of hostages kidnapped by Palestinian terrorists during the October 7, 2023 massacre are suing the leaders of multiple New York-based anti-Israel radical groups, including detained Columbia University protest leader Mahmoud Khalil for allegedly aiding and abetting Hamas and continuing acts of international terrorism. According to the lawsuit, defendants in this case are Hamas. They say that the defendants in this case are Hamas's propaganda arm in New York City and on the Columbia University campus. Well, it sounds like there's some of the professors as well. The suit alleged their self-described acts in furtherance of their goals to assist Hamas have included terrorizing and assaulting Jewish students, unlawfully taking over and damaging public and university property on Columbia's campus, and physically assaulting Columbia University students. The plaintiffs include 6 family members of captives who remain held by terrorists in Gaza, as well as some of the hostages who were freed and rescued, including Iris Weinstein, Chagai, the daughter of murdered Israeli Americans Gad and Judy Chagai. We had the Weinstein family on this show when they thought their relatives were still alive to talk about this. You know what? Mike, I got it on my list already. You don't have to remind me. But I am going to, I already dropped him an email. I'll reach out to them, and as soon as I can get him back on the show, we'll have him back on the show. Khalil was named as one of the heads of the pro-Hamas actions at Columbia University last year, which the families claimed helped to spread the propaganda of Palestinian terrorist groups, including Hamas. Over the weekend, the Department of Justice claimed in court papers that the Columbia graduate student who is a green card holder should be deported for allegedly hiding his ties to, wait for it, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, on his visa application, otherwise known as UNRWA, the organization which has been tied to terrorism and the October 7th attacks. The lawsuit also names Nardine Kiswani of Within Our Lifetime. Do you remember her? She's the lunatic who's always wrapped in a keffiyeh, who's always chanting like death to Jews in the middle of Times Square. She's the one who was there on October 7th, right after the attack became public. She was there leading her group of crazies. Within Our Lifetime is one of the most violent ones. Miriam Alwan of the Columbia Students for Justice in Palestine. Okay, you know her. She's the one who was asking for humanitarian aid. Do you remember that nonsense? She's the one on the Columbia campus who was asking for humanitarian aid because they might starve. And our friends, are exposing all the insanity in the classroom. He goes out there and he says, would you like humanitarian aid? There's a Shake Shack right over there. I'll bring you the... God, I should have loaded that audio up today. I didn't even think about it. But yeah, that's who's on this list. I shouldn't know these guys' names by heart. And Cameron Jones of the Columbia Barnard Jewish Voice for Peace as defendants. Yeah, okay. According to the families, as Palestinian terrorists launched their vicious attack on Israel, killing 1,200 people, injuring thousands, and kidnapping 251 more, Hamas urged its supporters abroad to join the battle in any way that they can. Khalil, Kiswani, Alwan, and Jones are accused of answering the call and launching protests and riots in response. The filing states associatal defendants have distributed pro-terror propaganda produced and stamped with the logo Hamas Media Office. Gee, Mike, who do you think could have sent them that material? I don't know where it could have possibly come from. Who wrote the story on that? That's right. The suit suggests that some of the defendants had prior knowledge of the October 7th attacks before they began. Columbia SJP was included in a signed statement supporting Hamas hours before the massacre. Wait, hang on. Let me read that again. Columbia Students for Justice in Palestine was included in a signed statement supporting Hamas hours before the massacre. Were they asked to sign this thing beforehand? Did they know it was going to happen? The toolkit, as we've discussed extensively on this show, also depicted graphics of Hamas paragliders that were used by the terrorists for the first time during the attack. Guys, before I sign a letter, I read it. Before I put my name in a brochure, I read the brochure to make sure there's nothing in there. Did nobody think to themselves, what are these paragliders, or did they know what they were going to be used for? Their names were on this thing before the attacks. These things were ready to go. Oh, it gets worse. According to the suit, 3 minutes before Hamas began its attack on October 7th, Columbia SJP posted on Instagram, "We are back," and announced its first meeting of the semester would be announced, and that viewers should stay tuned. They had been shut down for years at that point. They had not been active on campus. Did they know beforehand? The families also alleged that every time Palestinian terrorists would put out a call for action, the student groups would respond, citing the violent encampment at Columbia's campus and the takeover of Hamilton Hall. According to the suit, the defendants are not protected under the First Amendment because they were coordinating with a foreign terrorist group and violated America's Anti-Terrorism Act. Associatal defendants are not independent advocates. They are expert propagandists and recruiters for international foreign terrorist organizations and nation-state proxies, operating in plain sight in New York City. The lawsuit is seeking unspecified damages and for the defendants to be charged with violating the law. We will follow this case with great interest. And when we come back, there's another case to discuss. Seattle City Attorney Ann Davidson will be joining us to discuss her lawsuit to fight the Trump administration over illegal immigration. Why are they doing that? We'll talk to her and hear it from her directly when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. The city of Seattle has joined a coalition of municipalities across the U.S. to challenge the Trump administration's policies, which are targeting sanctuary cities and counties. The lawsuit was filed back in February, arguing that the administration's executive orders and directives violate constitutional protections and infringe on local control. Joining us now on the KVI studio line to discuss, friend of the show, Seattle City Attorney Ann Davidson. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for making some time for me, Ari.
Always a pleasure. So we disagree on this, and you and I usually see eye to eye. So why don't you make the case to my audience? Why don't you tell us why the city's joining this? Because isn't it kind of a moot point? The state's already a sanctuary state, Seattle hopping on board. What does that really do when the state has to fight it out already?
Well, what I do is protect Seattle, which when federal appropriated funds from Congress, $370 million to be precise for the year of 2025, is threatened to be withheld. I want to step forward and say that's not appropriate. Congress has appropriated those funds. We are relying upon those, and that is what is at issue here is federal overreach through the use of coercion to say you need to use your people to do what we say, otherwise we're going to withhold funds, and we just can't have that.
So let's take a very, very basic case for a minute here. Police have somebody in custody on a drug deal or something that's more misdemeanor in the area, and they say, hey, we've got this guy, and there's an ICE detainer on him. Rather than the city releasing him into the parking lot, wouldn't it just be easier to say, hey, come pick this guy up? Is that really so much of a stretch for the city to do?
We comply with all judicial warrants, and that needs to be made clear. What we're saying is with this low number of officers that we do have, what we do need them focused on is public safety, to be responsive to crime that is happening in the city of Seattle. And that means that they are there to conduct investigations, to talk to witnesses, to talk to victims. And we need to make sure that it's not hampered by any additional responsibilities on them, but by carrying out federal immigration enforcement at the same time. So we just need them to be focused on their task at hand, which is public safety. And again, that's where we are saying local control with local leaders about what we want them to do with their time to enhance public safety.
Gotcha. Now, wouldn't you think, though, that federal authorities, by getting rid of the people who are dealing drugs or the people who are doing human trafficking here in our city, here in our state, here in our county, would actually make law enforcement's job easy? I mean, that's a thing. They've tried soap zones, they've tried soda zones, they've tried all these different things, and none of them really seem to be working. We don't have enough police officers. Wouldn't more law enforcement be appreciated?
I absolutely. I mean, what I ran for office for 4 years ago is because I saw our laws not being respected. And what I stand for is that everyone must respect our laws, and that does include our president. So I think law enforcement is part of that as well. And so when you're talking about the low number of officers we have, I think it's important that they understand that they are there to be responsive to public safety. Again, the city will comply with any judicial warrant, and that is the part that we will make sure everyone understands. But the role of our Seattle police officers is to make sure that they are there to be responsive to criminal activity in the midst of Seattle and not carrying out federal authorities' responsibility that they need to do. We do want them to do that.
Okay, so I think I found the dividing line between what I'm saying and what you're saying. So, for example, if they arrest somebody who happens to be an illegal immigrant, then they can cooperate with federal authorities, but they're not going to go help ICE break down doors out of their way. Is that about the dividing line there?
Well, again, we will comply with any judicial warrant. It is just that when they are there, they're not supposed to be asking about that. Their main task, again, is to investigate the criminal incident they are responding to, interview witnesses, and talk with victims. And when I need to be ensuring public safety in the city of Seattle as best of my ability, that is that I need victims and witnesses to know that they can fully participate in that investigation, in the process, even when it comes to my office, where it's not, we're not going to be inquiring into that status. That is a federal enforcement responsibility, and that is not what we're doing here.
We're talking with Seattle City Attorney Ann Davidson about the city's efforts to join the case against the Trump administration regarding illegal immigration. So this is all based on a post-9/11 ordinance about being a welcoming city. It's been more than 25 years since almost 25 years since 9/11. We're dealing with a different kind of problem in our city right now. Don't you think it's time to perhaps re-examine that ordinance?
Well, I'm not a lawmaker here in the city. I enforce the law, and again, that is what I said I ran on, which is important to me. Everybody needs to respect the laws. There's a process by which laws are passed and become so. Our city council, as you said, put the ordinance in our municipal code back in 2003 when they saw people were being unfairly targeted here post 9/11, and so that is an important piece. It's a part of our social fabric here in the city of Seattle. These are people we walk by on our neighborhood streets, people that have moved here from other countries who have fled civil war or other types of situations where they've needed to come to America, which is, we're supposed to be that beacon of hope. That's where we are. That's what we want to be as a country. And I think that if that's what our city council wants to do, then that's what they do. Again, I'm not the lawmaker in this scenario. I defend our laws that are on the municipal code books for Seattle, and that is one that we have here. And again, thinking that is to enhance public safety so that our officers know what their task is when they respond to a call for a criminal incident that they're responding to. It is to conduct that investigation and not be also concerned with, are they supposed to be doing additional federal responsibilities? That's what the federal government should do.
In the last few minutes we have with Seattle City Attorney Ann Davidson, we're seeing a lot of people protesting in the streets. We've been seeing it since October 7th. We've been seeing a lot of that. We're now finding out that a lot of these people happen to be on ISIS hit list, and yet we don't see around here a lot of those cases getting referred to any offices. Are those cases being referred to your offices? Because I don't see even a lot of arrests happening with regard to what's happening on the streets, blocking freeways, blocking streets. I understand freeways would be more state, but blocking streets around here, I don't even see any arrests happening.
I guess I'm not following your question. And when we get referrals from police, then we review that evidence and then make our charging decisions. But I'm not sure if everything you're describing would come to my office, or if I guess I'm unclear where your example is. Sorry about that, Ari. It might just be me with my head cold.
Oh, don't sweat it. I'll clarify it a little bit. So we have a whole bunch of these Hamas supporters who are blocking streets on a regular basis. We have protesters that are blocking streets on a regular basis. The Seattle police do not appear to be actually arresting those people and seem to be allowing them to continue walking. My main question is basically not whether or not your office is prosecuting them, but are a lot of these charges getting referred to your office, if any, or have you not seen that many of them?
I've not gone to directly inquire about those specifically, but again, with the First Amendment protection of speech, there's going to be some things that are allowed to happen at the same time. But when it rises to certain levels, then that is where officers intervene based upon their policy directions and what they're supposed to be responsive to. And then I'm second in line, just like I talk about it, like a track relay team. My office, we then, when we receive that referral, review that charge and then make our prosecuting determination from there.
Ann Davidson, Seattle City Attorney. Even though you're not feeling well, I really do appreciate you joining us today, despite the head cold. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for making time for me, Ari. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 gift card, plus so much more. Yet another reason to always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. I haven't had that much confidence in Steve Witkoff, who's Trump's special envoy emissary to the Middle East. I know a lot of other people have said, oh, he's doing a great job. I recognize that he's gotten some hostages back, and I recognize that he's gotten them back from different countries, but I haven't been happy about all the deals. Now, I know there's the whole idea of, well, you got to play the hand that you're dealt, and Joe Biden dealt this deck. Believe me, I get that. But at the same time, some of the things he's been doing with negotiating with Hamas, you knew they weren't going to work out. Now, it's okay to try and negotiate first and then drop the gates of hell on them like what's happening right now. But he said something on Fox News that really, really concerned me.
Is broken there. I know that you said Hamas has been unreasonable in trying to respond to another round of the next phase of a ceasefire. Where do we go from here? What are the odds you get them back to the table and get these hostages home?
Well, I certainly hope we get everybody back to the table and get the hostages home. I was in Doha. I met with many of the Arab leaders at the Arab Summit. I thought we had a deal, an acceptable deal. I even thought we had an approval from Hamas. Maybe that's just me getting duped. But I thought we were there, and evidently we weren't. So this is on Hamas. The United States stands with the state of Israel. There's just that's a 100% commitment, and we've expressed that. Hamas had every opportunity to demilitarize, to accept the bridging proposal that would have given us a 40 or 50-day ceasefire where we could have discussed demilitarization and a final truce. There were all kinds of opportunities to do that, and they elected not to. And this becomes the alternative. And it is unfortunate. Do I think would we be amenable to a reach out from Hamas? Of course we would be. No different than in the Russian conflict. We want to end the killing. But we need to be clear who the aggressor is here, and that is Hamas.
Well, and quickly, I want to ask you before.
I'm kind of 50-50 on this. I really am. That's the problem, is that you knew who you're negotiating with. You're a guy who negotiates deals. You didn't realize you're negotiating with a terrorist organization. There's a reason we don't negotiate with terrorists. Look, I know under negotiations you're not going to get everything you want. But these guys in the Middle East, they only understand strength. They only understand that. You know, there's protests happening in Gaza right now. I don't know if they're going to come of it. I don't know if anything's going to come of it, but there are protests happening in Gaza right now because the people are saying, enough, we want Hamas out of here. That doesn't eradicate the mentality that supported Hamas. It just says right now we're in pain, we want them gone. That doesn't mean some other group isn't going to rise up in their place, because before them there was Fatah, and before them there were these guys, and the PLO, and every other group you can imagine. So for me, that gives me less confidence right there. You got to know who you're negotiating with. You got to know who's on the other side of the table. Now, look, if he says there's no point in negotiating with these guys ever again, it's just not going to happen, yeah, guess what? Then he'll have my support back. You know what? You're allowed to get burned once. But I don't like the direction. It seems like these negotiations, what was he offering them? That's something else I'm concerned about. Conversely, something I am enjoying was Mike Huckabee's testimony up on Capitol Hill today. He's about to be confirmed as the U.S. ambassador to Israel. So he's up there testifying. Here's what he said today.
I cannot imagine under any circumstances that any right-minded person would find it acceptable to support or to even acknowledge that there was justification in any way for the massacre of innocent civilians on October the 7th. If I'm confirmed, I will be absolutely clear to carry the president's policies. They have been clear that Hamas will have no future in Gaza. It can't. This was not simply a cold-blooded murder in which people came across the borders and shot innocent people. They massacred them. And they did it in the way that was most physically painful and in the way that was most personally humiliating. And worse, They videotaped themselves doing it because they were proud of it, and they published it with pride. And they announced repeatedly that they would do it again. Hamas is not a government. It's not a standing army. It is a terrorist organization, and they acted like it. And they must be treated as such. And if confirmed, I would hope that this unfortunate, horrific war that has resulted in many, many deaths, including Americans, the taking of hostages for a longer period of time than even the hostages in 1979 were taken during the Iranian takeover, that all of that could come to an end, and there could be accountability for what was done to Jewish people on October the 7th of 2023.
Moral clarity. He's got my vote. Boom. That's what you do. Exactly right. I'm not saying the Trump administration doesn't have moral clarity, but I've been kind of lukewarm on Steve Witkoff from the beginning. Look, he can change. He can prove me wrong, and I never underestimate the Trump administration because the last time when they came out with a peace plan for the Middle East, I go, that's insane. Why are you giving Hamas everything they want? Because they knew they'd walk away from the table, and that gave them the Abraham Accords. You have to start somewhere. At the same time, I'm still going to be watching Steve Witkoff. He's had some great successes, but there are some things he does that gives me cause for concern. We'll follow his career with great interest. When we come back, my friends, Signal Gate out in D.C. How is the Trump administration dealing with it? We'll give you the details on that, plus a whole lot more. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus so much more. But before we get to any of that, all they could talk about on the news in Washington, D.C., anywhere else, is Signalgate. The fact that a reporter from The Atlantic was accidentally added to a social media chat app where people, or chat app, not social media, but a chat app. I use Signal. It's a privacy. It's more encrypted, so a lot of people like to use it, especially some of our sources for the show, for some of our stories. So a reporter was added to a chat with some of the top administrators in the Trump White House. That is cause for concern, 1,000%. But as I said at the opening of the show, when I saw their communications, when he actually printed their communications and what they said, it gave me cause for joy. Why? Because they are exactly who they are in private when they think nobody's looking at them as they are in public. They're discussing issues. They're having differences of opinions. They're saying we're all on message here. Maybe we should consider this. Maybe we should consider that. They're not trashing the president. They're not trashing each other. They are civil. They are patriots, and they are celebrating America. If you're wondering what to say to your friends who are Democrats, who go, oh, look at this, look at this, look at this. You know what you say? So the media found one thing. After 75 days, this is what they're grabbing onto. This. Was anybody killed? Thank God, no. You know what you say? We take our licks and we move on. A mistake was made, 100%. But on the flip side, you got to talk about how Donald Trump has taken out the Houthi rebels because Joe Biden didn't. Scott Jennings, he's too good for CNN. He should not be on CNN, but at the same time, it's so much fun watching him absolutely destroy the people they put up against him on CNN. He blew their entire narrative out of the water last night.
All right, moments ago, Caitlin Collins was reporting on her show, Scott, that there is shock inside the White House that this chat was texted to Jeffrey Goldberg. Are you shocked?
Well, sure. I mean, it's a shocking thing, and they've admitted that it was a mistake and admitted that it's authentic, so they're owning up to it. I think they're still, based on what I've heard tonight, trying to figure out how it happened. I'm not sure the National Security Advisor, Walls, even knows Goldberg. In fact, I don't believe he knows him and has never met him. I did learn a few things in some of my conversations, if you're interested. One is that the Signal program was preloaded on a number of devices and agency computers in this circuit when they got there. So in their view, it was already in use. Number two, in some of the messages, they talk about needing to go to the high side computers, which is the classified system. So they clearly were knowing there was a line on what you could discuss in a chat like this versus classified system. Number three, there is a dispute over whether the term war plans is being exaggerated. And number four, look, I love the policy. It's well executed. You've got a thoughtful policy discussion going on, and we did what the Biden administration would not do, stop these people from harassing our shipping lanes and our boats and our Navy. So good on the Trump administration for reversing a bad policy.
So a wild triumph, but I will note that Pete Hegseth does not agree with you.
Okay. So he destroyed their entire narrative about Signal. What's their narrative? Why are you using a social media app? Why are you using a chat app? Why are you having national policy discussions? Well, everybody in D.C. does it. That's number one. But number two, he was talking about the special place where they put classified documents, which was referred to in the chat of, you want to see the material? It's in this inbox in your classified documents. That's where it is. So what's the narrative? A mistake was made and move on. The only problem was it took the Trump administration about, I'd say about 20 hours before that was the narrative they came out with. Until then, they were attacking The Atlantic. Look, I hate The Atlantic. The Atlantic has been sued for Seattle stories. My favorite is the one involving the Seattle Sonics and the new sports stadium. You remember that Erica C. Barnett claimed that Ron and Don had sent their army after her and that she was being harassed, or rather it was sent them after, not her. It was after the council members, the women council members, made it a sexist thing, which none of that ever happened. They got sued for that. That's just one case of them getting sued. Let's not forget that the Atlantic is the ones that published that story that's in question about Donald Trump claiming they were suckers and losers at Normandy, which everybody who was there for denies ever happened. Let's not forget this is the same outlet that was Russia collusion, all that. So I have many questions about the Atlantic, but look, even with the Seattle Times, a broken clock is right twice a day, and it looks like the Atlantic is 100% right in this occasion. Now, they didn't reveal any classified data, which leads me to wonder, anything Jeffrey Greenberg writes, you got to take it with a mountain of salt. So I wonder if it was actually in the chat or it was just them discussing it and saying, hey, here's where you go consult your classified material. But at the same time, the narrative now is a mistake was made, we're moving on, we're kicking the Houthis' butts. And because we're kicking the Houthis' butts, your grocery prices are coming down because now the Houthis who are attacking Red Sea shipping can't attack the shipping as much, and because of that, ships can go freely. They don't have to divert around the Horn of Africa. As a result, goods are getting to you quicker. They're not burning as much gas, and the cost of goods is coming down. It's that simple. Most people, you ask them, who are the Houthi rebels? They have no idea what you're talking about. They think it's a country. They don't even know they're based in Yemen. Here's what Donald Trump said today when he was asked about all this.
It's a question I've been asked now, and I've given a few answers, and they've all been the same. We have an amazing group. Our national security now is stronger than it's ever been. We have had a very, very successful, numerous attacks on that area. These are people that shoot down ships, not only our ships, ships all over the world. They're shooting down right out of the water and damaging them badly, or they're going down. They're also shooting anything that happens to be flying in the area. We hit them very, very hard.
Exactly right. That's the messaging. Now, NSA advisor, Mike Waltz was asked about this on the shows, and odds are it wasn't him, it was a staffer. But it doesn't matter. The buck stops with him. The buck stops with President Trump. So what'd he say?
Yes, Mr. President, you asked about lessons. I think there's a lot of journalists in this city who have made big names for themselves, making up lies about this president, whether it's the Russia hoax or making up lies about Gold Star families. And this one in particular, I've never met, don't know, never communicated with, and we are looking into and reviewing how the heck he got into this room. But I'll tell you what, the world owes President Trump a favor. Under Biden, global shipping was shut down. Pinprick attacks, months between them, our destroyers being fired upon dozens of times. President Trump took decisive action with his national security team, took out the head missileer, knocked out missiles, knocked out headquarters, knocked out communication sites. And for once, as we hear, as you will all hear from every one of our allies, thank God for American leadership again. Thank God for American strength. You're welcome, Lord. And look, we had a national security team that was coordinating these efforts. As Director Radcliffe testified today, his first day on the job, he was introduced to this app on his government systems at the CIA and at the State Department and otherwise. So, look, this journalist, Mr. President, wants the world talking about more hoaxes and this kind of nonsense rather than the freedom that you're enabling. And a key part of our sovereignty is open sea lanes and knocking the crap out of terrorists, which is exactly what your team and Pete Hegseth, a good friend and fellow veteran, is leading the charge on. And it's an honor to be part of it.
Now, that's fine. You can blame the reporter and then pivot away, but I ask the left a question. Who's the victim in this case? Who's the victim? Who was wronged by all of this? No military personnel were compromised. No operation was compromised. The operation was a success. Was it a screw-up? Absolutely, and I'm not trying to diminish that. Made by some staffer? Sure. Can you guys do me a favor? Can you tell me who the staffer was who leaked the information on Israel's attack on Iran to Iran? There was somebody in the Biden administration. Have you guys found that person yet? How deep was the investigation? Anybody tell me that? Don't we still have a leak outstanding from the Supreme Court about who leaked Roe v. Wade? Leaks happen in Washington, D.C. Has anybody ever found the answers to either of those two questions? No. And if you put that back, oh, whataboutism, whataboutism, that's not what it is. You're saying, is there a double standard or not? Here, there's no problem. With the Israel-Iran thing, you literally gave away their attack plans. That was a member of the last administration. Waltz drew a clear line in the sand on that one.
We have our technical experts looking at it. We have our legal teams looking at it. And, of course, we're going to keep everything as secure as possible. No one in your national security team would ever put anyone in danger. And as you said, and we've repeatedly said, the attack was phenomenal and it's ongoing. But the media wants to talk about everything else except for the hostages you're getting out of the Middle East, Iran on its back foot, sea lanes getting reopened, peace in Europe. As we just saw today with a Black Sea ceasefire, we were just on with Steve Witkoff, myself, our team in Saudi Arabia. They want to talk about all this other stuff except for your amazing successes and the successes of your team.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly right. They are going to try, they're going to resuscitate this all week long, all month long. They're going to be doing CPR on this story, trying to keep it alive. Because if they have to talk about the issues, then they got a real problem. How do I know this? CNN told me. And I believe when CNN says their polls are telling them this because they're always slanted towards the left.
Let's take a look at the percentage of the country who say that we're on the right track. It's actually a very high percentage when you compare it to some historical numbers. What are we talking about? According to Marist, 45% say that we're on the right track. That's the second highest that Marist has measured since 2009. How about NBC News? 44%. That's the highest since 2004. Wow. The bottom line is the percentage of Americans who say we're on the right track is through the roof. And if you were to compare it to when presidents have historically been reelected, of course, Trump is not constitutionally eligible to run for reelection, but I think it sort of puts it in perspective. 42% of the country says the country is on the right track when the incumbent party is reelected. And also keep in mind, back when Kamala Harris lost and the Democrats were turned out of power, only about 27 to 28% of the country said the country is on the right track. The bottom line is right now, a much higher percentage of the country says we're on the right track.
So the Democrats are going to keep trying to keep this story alive. Staying alive. That's what they're going to do. All week long, you are not going to hear the end of this, but the regular American goes, my gas prices are coming down. Price of eggs are coming down. And here's something else. When you have a national security debate, which party do people trust? Republicans or Democrats? Conservatives or liberals? When it's domestic issues and everything's fine on the world stage, that's when they want the Democrats. When the world is chaotic, that's when they want the Republicans. So the Democrats are going to try and make a thing out of national security. Oh, spare me. We wouldn't be in half these problems if not for them. The disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, the invasion of Russia of Ukraine, October 7th, everything going on in the Middle East, the Houthi rebels. You want to get into a debate about national security? Maybe we could always bring up Hillary's emails. I mean, if we really want to have fun with that. So how bad is this polling really for the left?
63%. According to the latest Fox News poll, say that they favor deporting those immigrants. So that's a pretty high number. Can you square that with what we just heard from Priscilla's reporting?
Yeah, I think that obviously the president has kind of blanketed the airwaves with saying that all of these people deported are criminals. And given the fact that we, reporters like Priscilla,
Oh, stop. That's the best you got? That's the best you got? That's all you can do. The majority of the country supports deporting illegal criminals, which is what's happening. Deporting Hamas terrorist supporters. And you're going to be on the other side of that? I feel like Lucius Fox. I feel like Morgan Freeman. That scene in The Dark Knight, right? You think that your client, one of the most powerful, richest men in the world, is secretly a vigilante who spends his nights beating, whatever, the bad guys to a pulp, and your plan is to blackmail this person? Good luck. That's literally what this is right here. Okay. So the majority of Americans feel away. We're going to tell them they're wrong for wanting criminals gone. We're going to tell them they're wrong for wanting terrorists gone. Yeah, good luck. By the way, how's that whole tariff thing going on? Caroline Levitt has a story for us.
Tariffs work, and President Trump is proving that every single day when new companies from around the world are pledging to invest billions of dollars in the United States of America and our workforce. Today, we had Hyundai announcing $20 billion in American investment, $5 billion in the great state of Louisiana to build a steel plant. Why? Because President Trump has implemented a 25% tariff on steel, and he has told companies around the world that America is open for business. And you won't face any tariffs if you bring your production to the United States. You will have low taxes, low energy costs, and you will have the best workforce in the world. You will hire American workers. And so every single one of these investments, the American people need to understand this is more money coming into your community. This is your hometown where you grew up that has been shuttered because globalists have sold you out, reviving again. Factories where your neighbors are having good paying jobs, where more money is going back into your pockets. And every time you go to the store to purchase a product, you're no longer seeing made in China on the back. You are seeing made in America on the back. That's President Trump's vision with these tariffs. And every day he is proving that they work and he is making America wealthy again.
So companies are moving back. You've had over $3 trillion of investment back in the U.S. That's going to bring jobs back here. That's going to bring manufacturing back here. Trump has discussed narrowing of the tariffs to the people who haven't complied yet. But so far, most people, most countries are going along with that. This looks like win, 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 win across the board. And the Democrats don't know what to do about it. They have no clue at all. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Paul in Kitsap County. You almost got that wrong. Paul, what's on your mind?
Going on that signal thread that you've been talking about, Wong is a guy that put the phone number in. So how did Wong get the Atlantic editor's phone number, number one?
Okay, so let's just take these one at a time. Hang on. Paul, listen to me for a second. Let's take these one at a time for a second. Have you ever used the Signal app?
No, but you need.
Okay, so hang on. I have. So let's do this way, okay? A lot of times people on the app go by their initials. And how did he have his phone number? They talk to reporters. They don't ignore them entirely. Did they cut and paste it from
Atlantic? They don't.
No. Hang on, Paul.
I don't believe anybody in national security.
Paul, listen to me. Jay Inslee has my phone number. His office had my phone number. Bob Ferguson's office has my email, even though they never use it. They have our contact information. I know this from public disclosure requests. The Trump administration guaranteed has the Atlantic's contact information. Guaranteed. Okay. And guaranteed they had Jeffrey Goldberg's.
I have to disagree with you, but you certainly have your opinion and I have mine.
Okay.
I don't believe, if you Wikipedia this guy is,
okay, Paul, I'm not going to Wikipedia anybody. You know why I'm not going to Wikipedia anybody? Do you know about all the battles that are going on with Wikipedia information being correct or not correct? In fact, there's lawsuits over it right now. Don't trust Wikipedia.
There's something going on that's funny about this. That's very, very strange.
Okay, we can agree on that this should never have happened.
Who's Jay Goldberg? Jay Goldberg?
Jeffrey Goldberg. He's the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic.
I know, but who is he in the national security?
He's not. It's a person with the initials JG. We did this in the first hour. Paul. We pulled up the guy's name, who it probably is.
JG, that's what they have?
Yeah, so on the Signal app, a lot of people just go by their initials. They don't even go by their full name. It's really an annoying app. And it really could have been a simple, stupid mistake.
I would definitely want to investigate the guy myself.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Paul. I think you make some good points here, Paul. But I'm saying is don't believe what you see on Wikipedia about this kind of stuff, all right, buddy? Got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, Bob Ferguson actually did the right thing for once. Stopped a mass murderer from being released from jail. The family of his victims is going to be joining us when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, we are streaming the show over on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, and Twitter. That's right. If you want to see how my beard's growing back in, because after I shaved it off to dress like our commander-in-chief, some of you expressed discontent. Plus, my wife did, too. She really didn't like that. So check out the stream over on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble and X. Well, earlier today, Washington Governor Bob Ferguson issued an order canceling the planned release of convicted mass murderer Timothy Pauly. Now, my favorite part of this decision is that it reversed an order made by former Governor Jay Inslee on his last day in office, which allowed Pauly the ability to be released from prison on parole. Joining us now, one of the family members of one of Pauly's victims, Kelly Tarp. Now, Kelly, I just want to say I love talking to you. I'm glad we've been in so much contact the past couple of days, but I think it's better that we talk about other topics, hopefully from now on, and not this, don't you think?
Oh, Ari, I would love to talk about something else besides the fight for justice that my family has been on since about 2012. But I will tell you right now, the girls call it that ugly cry, but it was a happy cry because it's justice when my sister called me. And we're beyond thankful that Governor Ferguson took the time to review the file in its entirety. And I think you've followed our case for quite a while as well. You know that file is huge. So we're thankful that he gave the time to look at the file in its entirety and saw that Pauly was not fit for parole. And we have justice for our family and our mom and dad.
I'm so happy for you guys that you were finally able to get justice when Jay Inslee turned his back on you guys. Now, tell us about your meeting with Governor Ferguson, because I don't know if you know this or not, there was a reporter camped out, said you guys were in there for over an hour. What was it like meeting with him? What'd you guys discuss? Was he asking questions about your family, about the case? What was the discussion?
I will tell you that Governor Ferguson was there for us. He heard us. He gave us the time to express. There was nothing new we shared with him. Everything was in the file that he has. He was himself and, legal counsel and another representative. We're thankful that he gave us the time to hear what was going on, but it wasn't just that. I mean, he looked at the file in its entirety, and that's what happened. That's what we wanted. We've been begging this board to take a look at the file in its entirety and see the injustice in terms of what they have done in terms of his sentencing. You've got members on that indeterminate sentencing review board that are practicing law without law degrees, that are making decisions that make absolutely no sense when you look at his file. You look at his psychological evaluations, you look at the reports, and we're thankful that that's what's happened, and he's determined him not fit for parole.
Now, I'm going to say this to everybody. You guys know my opinion of Governor Ferguson, but today we're laying off Bob Ferguson because he did the right thing. So I sent him a thank you letter, which I read earlier on the show. I recommend all of you do the same thing. The number I gave you to call him to pressure his office to do the right thing, I recommend you call it again to say thank you, because thank yous are always free. So I recommend you guys do that because the right thing happened today. Now, Kelly, the overwhelming amount of support you guys got, I saw the Bonnie Lake mayor was talking about this. I know other people picked up the story as well. I saw almost every news outlet in town was covering this. I assume it's been a whirlwind past, about 72 hours for you, right?
It's been a lot. Like I said, Ari, when we got the decision of what Governor Inslee did before he left office, which we were completely blindsided. Again, we've said this before. Governor Inslee, former Governor Inslee, has our information. We have a picture of us signing a bill into law to have more transparency so victims and survivors in the prosecuting attorney's office, there's open communication when you have offenders, murderers, that are going in front of this board that victims and survivors, we have a right to see what's going on, and the communication is there. We signed a bill with Governor Inslee. He met with us via Zoom before he overturned the decision in 2022 not to release him. So he had our information, and the fact that he didn't have the common courtesy to call us and let us know, it's an injustice to victims. It's a slap in the face. Our voices count. There's a process, and they didn't do it. So it's been a lot this last 3 months, not just this past 72 hours, but we're thankful for the support of the community. We're thankful that people are looking at this as right and wrong and justice for our family as well as our state. Victims should have more rights than convicted murderers. We should have more of a say and marriage than the felon that's trying to get released and will do anything and say anything that they can to get released. So I'm thankful that our community has stepped up as well to see if you speak up and you have a voice, there's a chance you can be heard. And we were all heard this time. So we're thankful. We're beyond thankful for our mom and our dad and Robert and Linda and Sherry.
Well, I'll tell you is that I'm glad this worked out the right way. I'm sorry your family had to go through all this. We did send a thank you to Governor Ferguson's office because they did make the right decision in this case. And Kelly, I hope the next time I see you, we could talk politics, talk about movies, talk about anything else so you guys can stop worrying about this and not have to worry that monster's ever getting out, especially, God forbid, being released to your neighborhood. Kelly, thank you so much. Please give my best to your family, all right?
I will. Thank you, Ari. Thank you for your listeners, and thank you, everybody. It's justice for everybody. It's not a win, and it's not political, and we're beyond thankful.
Kelly, thanks so much for being with us today. I really feel for you and your entire family. Congratulations, if that's the word we should use for it. But thank God you finally got justice for your family. So really, really wishing you all the best. Thank you so much for joining us today. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss, including the fact that Dow Constantine looks like he's getting a $675,000 payday by a bunch of people he appointed to office. We'll talk about the crony capitalism when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 gift card, plus so much more. Yet another reason to always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com. Download the KVI app. And, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Well, news broke on our show yesterday that Dow Constantine has been nominated to now be in charge of Sound Transit. So let me just break this down for everybody. He's nominated by the people that he put on the Sound Transit board to get a $675,000 a year salary, which, by the way, is more than triple what the governor gets. It's more than triple what the mayor of Seattle gets. It's more than double what the superintendent of Seattle Public School gets. And with no open process, no transparency at all whatsoever. Joining us now to discuss on the KVI studio line, John Wilson, who's the King County Assessor right now, and I believe running for King County Executive. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, great to be with you, Ari.
Pleasure to have you. So you said you have unique insights into this whole thing. Tell us what you got.
Well, this is clearly an example of insiders helping insiders and the public be damned. And, it's a shame. It's why clearly the public gets so skeptical about government, and particularly around Sound Transit that's, millions of dollars over budget, years behind schedule, and their cost estimates keep ballooning and ballooning like there's no end to it. And you just got to ask yourself, really, this is the best you could do? Congrats to Dow. But the fact is, the Sound Transit faces some really big issues, and it's going to take somebody with some expertise in transportation that Dow just doesn't have.
What do you mean? He's been on the board for so many years, and things have just gone swimmingly. What do you mean he doesn't have the expertise? You're talking crazy.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about tilting against the windmills of the status quo. Look, we're hostage right now to people that just want to keep doing what we're doing and then somehow expect that things will get better. They won't. The regional homelessness authority is a disaster. Sound Transit's a disaster. The county budget is a mess right now. All of that, and there's one common factor in all of them, and that's who's been in charge of a lot of this stuff.
Exactly. I completely agree. I mean, let's talk about this for a second. You mentioned the King County Regional Homeless Authority. It's a colossal waste of money. It's a colossal disaster. We have more homeless people than ever before, and we've spent more money on the homeless problem because it's not a homeless problem, it's a drug problem. On Sound Transit, when they took those air and sample surveys and they studied all of it and they checked out how much meth was in the air and how much fentanyl was in the air and how much of all the drugs was in the air, the place is basically like a drug den on wheels, and those are two of Dow Constantine's problems right there: transit and the homeless.
Well, all right, there are a couple of things we ought to be doing. First, as far as drug use on the transit, there ought to be a zero tolerance policy as far as use on either the rail or the bus, and that if somebody hauls that paraphernalia out, the driver pulls either the train over or the bus over, is immediately on the radio to dispatch, and 2 uniformed deputies take that person off the bus, book them into jail, book them, not catch and release. This isn't a salmon recovery program, and they hold them until the judge decides whether they go into treatment or they go into jail. Second, as far as the Sound Transit situation, we need to reform the board, and that's going to require leadership of a new executive who isn't part of the status quo, isn't part of the insiders game, who will go to Olympia and say the board needs to have a certain number of members that are actually voted on and elected by the people who pay the taxes. That's the right thing to do. It's what we ought to do, and I'll fight to do it.
So I'll tell you something that most people didn't realize when they voted for Sound Transit. They said, sure, a train would be fun. Sure, a train would be nice. But as part of that was this unelected board that John's talking about right now, this unelected board that can tax you, that can advocate for taxes on you. And how's that worked out for you? Just remind everybody, how much are you paying for your car tabs right now? We're talking with King County Assessor John Wilson, who's running for King County Executive. John, why'd you decide to get in the race? Was it this or was it something else?
It's a host of things. First and foremost, frankly, we've got to adequately fund public safety. Our communities aren't safe. You mentioned it, people smoking fentanyl on the bus. Assaults, murders up 59% over the last 5 years, and that we only run booking in the South County Jail from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. as if crooks operate on bankers' hours. Come on, seriously? No, we adequately need to fund law enforcement. Right now, the budget that Dow's put forward would cut 80 officers, 80 sheriff's deputies out of unincorporated King County, basically leaving it wide open. That's wrong. Second, on housing, we need both more affordable housing, which means we got to figure out how to build it faster, not regulate it more. And second, the homelessness crisis, for gosh sake. We have sitting up on Aurora Avenue a Sam's Club, 144,000 square feet that could be turned into emergency shelter. I brought that to the county's attention in 2018 when it closed. They've been sitting there, and nobody's lifted a finger, including my two opponents, to do anything about it. We could make that into temporary shelter to get people under shelter and get them cleaned up in that. And then in terms of taxes, frankly, I've been to Olympia, and I'm down there again this session fighting for a fair property tax system that would give homeowners and renters a tax break rather than just the legislature constantly taking the money and running.
We're talking with John Wilson. The last few minutes we have with him, he's King County Assessor. He's running for King County Executive. So you mentioned taxes, and that's great. But as King County Assessor, you're in a unique position to understand the affordability crisis that's happening around here with not enough housing. How would you deal with that?
There are a couple of things you can do. Frankly, housing, and we've had some internal discussions already about how we'd approach this. And everybody talks about AI, and that. One of the things where AI could really help is streamlining the permitting process, and you should be able to take that process down from several years down to maybe 60 days or less. There's smart ways to do that. Part of it is identifying properties that are already open and available. Again, in 2018, I identified 25 surplus public properties sitting there vacant that could have had housing built on them. You know how many have had housing built on them since then? Not a one, including two that my opponent, Gurmai Zahale, wanted for a community youth achievement center. I literally walked him through how to do it to bring the property into the county so that it could be used by the community. Has he done it? No. We need people that are actually going to do some stuff and deal with the problems that we have, not just pay lip service to it or, propose defunding the police or closing the youth jail, but get real. And I'm real.
John, if people want to learn more about you, if they want to support your campaign, if they want to volunteer for you, what's the best way they can do that?
Go to electjohnwilson.com, and you can both donate and see where you can sign up for support. And we'd love everybody. We're building a big, big tent because we're going to show that this county is going to be heard, and we're going to move this county finally forward.
King County Assessor and candidate for King County Executive John Wilson, thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
Terrific. Thanks much.
Yep, always a pleasure. And now we go over the text line. Some of you wanted to weigh in on this. So this one here, John in Lakewood says, how much am I paying for my tabs on 2 cars, 2 motorcycles, a trailer, and a canoe? Yeah, okay. Like, how much? It's insane, by the way, how much we're paying for our car tabs, except for me. Larry in Magnolia says, Ari Dow put them in. Can their salaries be reduced to cover his inflated salary? By the way, funny you should mention it. Doge Washington, Wake Up _Washington, the Twitter account that's been doing all the research for everybody here in Washington. You should check out what they just posted. They posted how the salaries have basically doubled over the past few years. You got to go check out the numbers of Sound Transit and how absolutely absurd they are. Plus, head on over to my Twitter account, @TheHofffather. I've put up all the numbers for salaries, comparing them to New York, comparing them to Chicago, comparing them to D.C., which, by the way, all have much bigger transportation systems than us. And our salary is double New York's. Think about that for a second. For the person who runs Sound Transit, the salary we are offering here with a system which is a fraction of the size of New York's, they pay their guy half of what we're about to pay Dow Constantine. It's absolutely insane. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win a $50 gift card, plus so much more. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, got some good news headlines for you, my friends. This, according to Fox News, a hero grocery store delivery driver wound up saving a woman's life when he realized something was wrong and trusted his instincts. Leandro Pinta Dantas, sorry, I took French, not Spanish, 36, didn't get an answer when he arrived at a customer's house for a food delivery she had ordered from the grocery store. Sensing that something was wrong when no one answered, he didn't just drive away. He took a few extra steps. I knocked on the door, but I didn't get an answer, so I called the contact number. When I didn't get an answer to that, he said he was going to leave, but said something didn't feel right. So he walked up to one of the windows of the house. He pushed some branches out of the way and spotted a woman lying on the floor of the home. The worker in England called emergency services and got a neighbor to help him. Paramedics were soon on the scene, treating the woman who suffered from diabetes. She was then taken to the hospital for further treatment. Her name was not immediately released. He said, "I believe God made me go back." He said it was about 9 p.m. when he arrived at the customer's home. He saw lights and a TV on. He told the outlet that after the customer didn't answer the door or the phone, "I believe God made me go back to the window and I pushed some branches so I could see better." That's when he saw the lady face down. He immediately called an ambulance. He says, "I'm just happy that I was there and saved her." While emergency workers tended to the woman in her 60s, the driver put all of her groceries away in the house. A few days later, he called to find out how she was doing. The woman was extremely grateful for the man's kindness. She also said, "I can't thank him enough for what he did." She said that he even came around later with flowers for me. After she was taken to the hospital and checked, she said she was able to return home the next day. The man has been nominated for a service award at his store. And his manager told the outlet, "We are so proud of the way he handled the delivery. He is a true hero. He went totally above and beyond, which probably saved the customer's life." I like stories like that. Here's another one, this one also from Fox News. Canine veteran Frankie, a 10-year-old German Shepherd trained in explosive detection and bite work, has been reunited with his handler by the American Humane Society after 3 years apart. The American Humane Society Military Working Dog Reunification Program brought together Frankie and his handler, Army Staff Sergeant Kristen van der Zanden, in San Antonio. They worked together from 2017 through 2021, and the canine was retired in January. Frankie's first handler was Van der Zanden. I can say Van der Zanden, but I can't say San Antonio. During his tenure, and the dog was her first canine. She was one of the 2 drill instructors for the Army's MWD program, which served with the canine for nearly 4.5 years. Their service together included a 9-month combat tour in Afghanistan and a 10-month combat tour in Iraq. Frankie's composure during the mission with several U.S. casualties after encountering sniper fire and mortar rounds in Afghanistan allowed the MWD to continue searching for explosives. The canine became something of a mascot for the U.S. Special Forces team afterwards on the base for his sweet, goofy personality. Bonding beyond protocol, Frankie slept on the floor of Van der Zanden's room during their deployment in Afghanistan instead of in his kennel. Van der Zanden and Frankie also completed 20 secret service missions together, protecting the president and first lady and several foreign dignitaries. Van der Zanden was reassigned to Fort Drum in northern New York in 2021, separating her from Frankie. In an interview with AHS, Van der Zanden shared that she was devastated to leave Frankie at Fort Johnson in Louisiana, saying that it was like leaving a child behind. Van der Zanden also said she was chomping at the bit to see Frankie again, and when it was rumored he may retire due to old age. Frankie served with 3 handlers during his military service, but was especially close to Van der Zanden. The reunification program paid for the canine's travel from Fort Johnson to San Antonio to reunite with Van der Zanden and Frankie. AHS will also cover all veterinary costs for the rest of Frankie's life. Van der Zanden is excited to give Frankie the opportunity to enjoy being a dog, relaxing on the couch, and living in a home instead of a kennel. Frankie is an extraordinary dog who made invaluable contributions to our country, said Dr. Robert Gonzert, AHS president and CEO. Like his fellow military working dogs, Frankie is an unsung hero who deserves our gratitude and respect. American Humane Society was honored to help give him the reunion and retirement he deserves. According to the program site, the American Humane Society honors the life-saving contributions of all veterans, including the military working dogs, who risked their lives courageously serving our country. Frankie will join Van der Zanden's other dog, a German Shepherd and a Kettle dog mix named Cora, as the newest members of the family. I love the kind of pet stories. That's good stuff. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today, we are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi, and South Lake Union with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We are also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement and a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life for 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots so future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we are giving away two tickets to Riley Green at the Washington State Fair on Saturday, August 30th. Riley Green is coming to the fair, and you can get your tickets now at thefair.com. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement, and a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, and two tickets to Riley Green at the Washington State Fair on Saturday, August 30th. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And a little weather update for everybody before we let you go is that our friend Shannon O'Donnell says it may be nice right now, but according to the Como News meteorologist, thunder showers may be coming our way the rest of the week as it warms up, along with some record high temperatures. So enjoy the sunshine for the few remaining hours we have left of it. That's going to do it for us today, my friends, but fear not. We'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You are listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.